The story continues with the mum, you couldn't just... Do you remember where we left off? The house is bursting at the seams with plants, parcels, the scent of damp compost. Well, just when things seem to have found their rhythm, along comes those faithful words that every mother knows. Mum, you couldn't just... Ah, yes, those four little words that seem so innocent but always end up with something wonderfully complicated. Could you just grow a few plants from seed? Just a few, mind you, nothing major, a small experiment. Well, it sounded simple enough, didn't it? Except, as you know, seeds have a way of multiplying. Once planted, they have a habit of growing roots. There's one little problem, though. It was far too early in the year. The air was so cool and the days were short, the seeds needed warmth and light and patience to germinate. So I had a plan. We'll make our own little growing room. And so before long, one of the bedrooms, yes, a bedroom, had been transformed into a miniature greenhouse. Shelves were set up along the walls with lights that hung above each shelf, and the trays with seeds began to sprout on very wet trays. The room glowed, casting a warm, outwardly light, and it used to laugh, half expecting somebody to knock at the door, the local police thinking that we were doing something illegal. If anybody looked through the window, they would have seen that it seemed very, very light in that room, nearly 24 hours a day. With the spare room glowing like a miniature sun and seedlings sprouting happily under the lamps, well, you think that would be enough excitement for one household, wouldn't you? But oh no, Dave always had another idea just around the corner. You see, Dave always had a deep love of fishing. From the moment he could hold a rod, he was the happiest sitting by a quiet lake, listening to the soft lapping water and the call of the birds. It wasn't just about the catch, it was about the peace. Kaylee often went along with him, wrapped up warm, enjoying the stillness of it all. And they used to say it was one of the few times that he actually stayed still long enough to relax. But David's passion for ponds and water went back even further when he was a boy. One morning, while I was enjoying a rare lion, David and his brother decided they wanted a pond of their own. So without a moment's hesitation, they went into the front garden, armed with shovels and great enthusiasm. Well, you can imagine the scene when I came downstairs later that morning, and there they were, two mucky-faced boys proudly standing with a gigantic hole in the front garden. After the initial shock and a few deep intakes of breath, I decided it was some things that best go with the flow. So off we went to the garden centre and came home with a pre-formed pond and a little pump. The boys had to make sure it was all level, and then we planted it and around it and even added some fish. So years later, it came as no surprise that even before the plant business started to take over every inch of their house, David still found time to share the love with his own daughters. And he and the girls built a big pond in their front garden and spent hours building a raised pond and filling it with fish. Once the plant business started getting really busy, then further fish pond was required in their front garden and was required for housing stock. This is now starting to impact on the flower beds that Kaylee had planted. It was to house water hyacinths, which at that time were not banned, but unfortunately they are now. Beautiful purple flower. The garden may have been turning into a jungle of plants waiting to be sent out to customers, but to the girls it was like a magical place, a living and growing adventure. But Kaylee, bless her, had about reached her limit. Every room was full The kitchen, the study, even the hallways were full of bags of compost by the back door, boxes stacked by the stairs, the constant rustle of packaging materials. Finally, one day she turned to David with the tone that only a mother can manage and said, "Enough is enough. You've either got to find somewhere else for the business or I'm moving out." And she meant it too. The business had grown far beyond their cosy little home and was starting to spill out in the whole village. There were lorry deliveries arriving in the narrow country lanes, drivers scratching their heads trying to figure out how to turn around. The neighbours were understanding, but it was clear that the time had come. So the hunt began for new premises. It was both exciting and daunting, and also knowing that growing to something much bigger than they'd ever imagined. This is where the next part of the story begins.